What's going on, guys? This is Brooks from HMO, the Hot Media, and various other journalistic outlets. And today I have with me an original collab here with Frank Analysis Franco. He is a part of the HMO network. He's an affiliate of the channel. Franco, what's up, man?
What's going on, Brooks? Thank you for having me on, man.
Thank you for coming on. I know that you're branched out and you've been doing your own thing for a little while. This is the first time I've actually had you on a video for a little bit, man. What's been
Yeah, it's
going
been a
on in your
while.
world? What's been going on in your world?
Not much, just the demonetization stuff which you and Pedro shared onto your channel as well. I've just been still on YouTube, still want to be there as long as I can and try to get as many normies as I can because not that many people know about other platforms like Rockfin and Odyssey, but I'm trying to get the word out. I want to stay on there as long as I can. I also got my backup channel. But the reason for why I was demonetized was just some BS. For more information on that, you can check out like the video that's on HMO and on my channel.
Yep, and I mean it really is some bull because you were given an email about a video that you deleted, and then they decided to just say, oh, you know what, all your videos are bad. Didn't give you the exact reason why they demonetized you. They just
Right?
said
Yeah,
the
it's
whole
like figure
content
it
is
out
bad.
yourself.
It's just crazy. I mean, and that's just the evil and the corruption that YouTube brings that Google was forcing kind of on them because YouTube was before about broadcasting yourself, right? And now it's if you're not CNN, if you're not MSNBC, Fox, whoever, you're not going to get a chance to really grow as a channel.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, with that being said, and you kind of already alluded to it, just talking about Rockfin and trying to convert a lot of people to understand more about politics. Uh, at the HMO, we talk a lot about sports and we talk about politics a little bit. There is one person on the football side. He plays for the LA Chargers. His name is Justin Jackson, and he's someone who, over the course of this year, has really put himself out there with his political views. He's a progressive person. Kind of got some fame for going at the neck of AOC, who we're kind of saying that she's not who we thought she was. And for you, as someone who's been able to do this for a good year now, you've been able to do this for a good year now, and you've really seen the growth of independent media. How important is it to see that someone as big as and popular as Justin Jackson to get onto the independent media?
I think it's really good. It's really important. I hope it branches out to more people. I hope it inspires other athletes to get informed also because as you know, like athletes are very inspirational and they attract a lot of normies too. He was on the Combo Cups the other day, and they were talking about how he could have like his cleats have a message like Medicare for all or free Assange, and so they put out a poll and it was like, oh, what can we get this guy to like have on his cleats? Because this needs to be talked about more. Like what we didn't get anything done under Trump, obviously, but we're not going to get anything done under Biden either because of who he represents, which are the corporations. And the reason why we got Trump is because of 8 years of Obama, which, Obama was serving the corporations also. So the message really needs to get out there. We need as many voices as we can. So I'm really glad that somebody like Justin Jackson, who supported Force to Vote, is now on YouTube. And it is also an opportunity for him to also talk to other content creators who can also help him expand his mind also.
Yeah, and with that being said, man, and like I said earlier, he did kind of get unmasked, or he kind of unmasked AOC just with her saying, "Oh, we can't force the vote because we don't have enough votes. We don't have this, that, and the third." Meanwhile, he goes on Twitter and he responds like, "You can do this if you do X, Y, and Z."
Hmm.
And I think it's just great because she does come across as someone who's very intelligent and is able to really get a message across very well. But when you're able to articulate a little bit better your message, I think that's really important. um and just like you said, you need to be able to reach across the divide and get people to understand. I don't know what that dynamic is with the LA Chargers, but I'm sure it's conservatives. I'm sure it's liberals. I'm sure it's progressive people, but I think it's just really important because the NFL is a conservative sport. Sports are conservative in general. What are you thinking about that?
So when you say they're conservative, what do you mean by that? Like the
Well,
majority of the fans are conservative?
exactly. Yeah, they're all conservative. I mean, let me not say all, but most are conservative. And you see that with the backlash with Colin Kaepernick
Hmm.
and the backlash with the George Floyd video that was posted last year by guys like Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson trying to force some change onto Roger Goodell. Of course, he admitted that he was wrong, but it's a little too little, too late. You know.
Yeah, and I think that if he does, from what I saw in the poll, and I voted for this, Medicare for All, I think already has enough discussion, and that the majority of the country already supports it. I mean, we look at polls, we see that even Republicans now support it. The majority of Republicans now support it based on the most recent polls. So I voted for having free Assange as his message on this tweet.
Mm.
And there's overlap there. Like, isn't this is supporting free speech, right? And a lot of conservatives are asking for more freedom of speech. Seeing with all this censorship that's happening, they're saying that it's mostly happening towards conservatives. No, it's actually happening to people on the left as well, if not more. And Julian Assange, who he exposed the war crimes of the Bush administration. He also exposed the corruption with the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, and Hillary Clinton. He exposed war crimes of other countries as well. And for that, the U.S. went after him, that the Western Empire, and he's being prosecuted in the United Kingdom. And Trump went after him. He did something that Obama couldn't do. Obama couldn't go after Julian Assange because of what he called and what they called the New York Times problem. Like, what is Julian Assange doing that a publication like the New York Times isn't doing? He published information just like any journal outlet would have done. But Donald Trump, he didn't care. He just went after Julian Assange. And thankfully, he was not extradited because the reason for the reason for why he wasn't extradited in the court ruling was because of the way that the U.S. prison system is set up. It's just so horrible. And what we saw with Jeffrey Epstein was that he killed himself. And because
Allegedly.
of the allegedly, yeah, it's important to say that.
Yeah.
And because of his mental health issues, the judge said that he runs the risk of killing himself in the U.S. prison system. But the U.S. can still appeal that, and that's what the Biden administration is still trying to do. So the Biden
Exactly.
administration is still trying to they're still seeking extradition on Julian Assange. So I don't see you saying that football is a conservative sport. There's overlap here with that message of freeing Assange.
Definitely. And it's just like you said, there definitely is a lot of overlap. I would say that my main concern with that messaging is the fact that, it's going to be a lot of people that are pro-war and they will give them a lot of backlash. I mean, we talked about it a little bit the other day when you first posted the video in our HMO group chat, how, people are going to really give him a hard time. They might even take away his primary means of living or primary means of getting payment, right? As a football player, he really, and the guy isn't even a starter, right? Not to say that he's a bum or anything, but he doesn't have like a big starting role, so he runs even an even bigger risk than someone like Colin Kaepernick did, or even any other prominent NFL player. So for him to be willing to do this says a whole lot about his uh his heart, I would say, what he
Hmm.
stands for. I think is really great for him. And I want to ask you this question: with Justin Jackson being able to do this, he's already got I think 1.3K followers on YouTube. So if he's able to roll it out a
Oh,
little bit
now
more,
he passed me. Now last time I checked, he was at 3.6K.
oh wow,
He's
he's only
growing
been out for like
fast.
what 2 days, right? 3 days.
Yeah. It's
That's
because
crazy, bro.
he was already really popular. Like, he had a big following on Twitter. The message got out, so it's going to continue to grow. And this is excellent because now there's a bridge between the political world and the sports world.
Mm-hmm. So my question is this: we already know some prominent voices like Colin Kaepernick already named him. You got someone like LeBron James. We know in the NBA. I can't think of anybody else. Otherwise, what would he have to do in order to get people like that onto his YouTube, onto independent media to make sure that they bring out a different message than what CNN, MSNBC, Fox put out there?
So what would it take for him to get on like somebody like Colin Kaepernick on his show?
Yeah, Colin Kaepernick, LeBron James, for them to understand what we understand, that both parties are our
Yeah.
enemies, that that there is a predators, but it's not white supremacists,
You can just
it's the
say,
rich.
just come on my show. Like I just have, it's a podcast. It's a podcast. I talk about the news, and I try to be a news person myself. But you're just coming on to share your opinions, and we can have a conversation. I can share information with you, and you can talk about your experience. I don't see why they wouldn't be down for it. It's just an interview. Like he just asked them questions, and then they talk about their experiences, and that's something I'm really interested in seeing, and him opening up that door more for his colleagues in football in the NFL, and to getting that experience of interacting with people in the political world, people who are very in tune to independent media. I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah. I don't know if you actually knew about this, but a couple of years ago, because so Justin Jackson went to Northwestern, very elite college in Chicago, and in 2015, 2016, I believe, they try to unionize the football team, and he was a part of that team at that time. I don't know if he signed on to becoming a union for the football team, but I think that really had a huge part in his growth as a future political pundit, as a progressive person. How big of an impact would that be to be able to unionize college football? Because we see now that there's a huge push for these student athletes to be able to start making money, just like you and I would be able to do as students. Working at a grocery store, working at a restaurant,
Hmm.
whatever it may be.
Hopefully that word gets out more, and hopefully he does bring on like more student athletes onto his show, like student athlete leaders who are trying to start unions in their universities. Because a lot of like people like myself, there's a lot of people who are so in tune to politics, they don't pay that much attention to sports. Some of them do, but some are more focused on like foreign policy and other issues. But it would be great to see him bring that more to people's awareness. Like these people that are in college are sacrificing their bodies, and they don't receive much protection. They're not receiving any much pay, right? They get a scholarship, but that's it. They need more than that. Like they're working for the university. Like they're using their bodies. So hopefully that message gets out more. But yeah, I'm really interested to see in, because this is like you got to diversify, right? People subscribe to different channels because they bring a different perspective, or they bring their expertise. Justin Jackson is coming from the sports world, so it would be really great to see that, seeing how politics influences sports. But I mean, his other takes are really great as well. Like he was talking about Andrew Cuomo and exposing him and
That was his
his
first video,
lies.
right?
Yeah, his first video after his intro.
Right.
And he had another one today talking about what happened in Texas and the power outage. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So I want to ask you this, man. And as someone who I'm still new to the journalism field. I mean, I've been around for 4 years now, but I know for me, up until last year, I was one of those people who said, you know what, I mostly believe what corporate media says. I'm not going to trust what a blog says. I'm not going to trust what some obscure person says simply because they're not establishment.
Mm.
Now, a year later, my mind has changed a whole lot more. I trust the people that you put me onto, like Niko House, like uh, uh, Jimmy Dore, Secular Talk, whoever it may be. How would you change the minds of people to switch over from the usual suspects to someone like you, to someone like Justin Jackson, to someone like Niko House?
So the people in corporate media, all you got to tell people who still listen to corporate media is tell them, look at who they get their money from. Look at their bosses, like they're billionaires. The system works for them. You think that they're going to say anything that's going to make their bosses upset? You think that they're going to say anything that's going to upset their donors? Just look at their commercials and you'll see who donates money to them. The pharmaceutical industry, the oil industry, the weapons manufacturing companies, and all of those industries actually profit a lot from war and from taking resources from other countries. What the US has done for, I want to say, like more than a century, we've been doing that. So that's something people need to keep in mind. And one thing I don't tell people is I used to do this, but I figured out to not do this anymore, is tell them to not listen to sources, because that automatically triggers like a resistance. Like they're like, I don't want to listen. I don't want you to tell me what to do. So what I do tell them is like, look, here's like some information about it. Keep that in mind. Think about how that's going to impact their narrative. They're always going to say things to try to manufacture your consent so that so that they appease the agendas of their donors. Keep that in mind. Like, are you going to get the full truth when you're listening to them? Most of the time it's going to be impacted by what their donors want. And there's also a lot of influence from the intelligence community. So I just tell people, keep that in mind when you get that information. And there's people who are on the ground, people who get their sources from other independent journalists who are on YouTube or who are on Rockfin or all these other alternative platforms, who are not getting paid by the donor class, by the elites, by the predators. You know, we're the ones who are working class, are like, we feel the urgency to get change in this country that's going to benefit all working class people. So who are you going to trust? Somebody who's getting paid by the billionaire class, or somebody who actually genuinely wants to help you and is a working class person like yourself?
And I can give you a great example. Uh, I have acquaintances, friends over at the Washington Post, and some of them, they don't see an issue with someone like Jeff Bezos owning the Washington Post, right? But it just seems like, and we know now that, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, they work with the Pentagon, they work with military industrial complex in general. So even the New York Times, right? They didn't even report what was going on truly with Iran back in I think that was what, the 50s or the 60s.
Yeah, I mean,
So
multiple times throughout history, 50s and 60s, and then in the 90s, like with the fake story about the babies in the incubator, and then that got exposed to be a lie.
yeah, so even the paper of record in the New York Times, even a prominent paper like the Washington Post, man, they aren't 100% trustworthy. I mean, they do expose some important things, Pentagon papers, uh, you know, some things with 9/11. You can trust some of what they say, but not everything that they do say. Would you agree with that?
You can trust some of what they say and some of what they don't say, like on the Washington Post.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
can.
yes, sometimes you will see that, but that's not the, like, those are just exceptions. Like, it's not the rule.
Mhm.
Like, it's not, they're not going to be talking about things like the Great Reset. Like, they're not going to be exposing those things. Like, it's very rare to see like good work, like actual good journalism in these outlets. Most of the time they're propagandizing for war. Like, they beat the drums for war all the time. They were beating the drums for getting us into Iraq. They were promoting weapons of mass destruction. So don't don't put your full trust in mainstream media. Definitely don't put your full trust in mainstream media, because you know who they serve.
Mhm.
Like, give independent, like, listen to independent media. Like, try look at this information for yourself. Like, look at the information that's being presented to you by independent media. Study that information, because a lot of times people put their sources in the description. Look at that information for yourself and compare it to what the mainstream is saying. Which one in the end turns out to be more true?
So, who are some of the online publications, journals that you respect, that you see as truth tellers?
So people who have like a good record of posting objective information, like people who don't have like a record of of putting out misinformation like the mainstream media does. The mainstream media does put out a lot of misinformation that gets debunked, and they have to retract information a lot of times. Sometimes they don't even retract it after it's already been debunked. But sources like the Gray Zone, like Mint Press News, Consortium News, the Black Agenda Report, um, what's the other one? There's a lot of them out there. They don't have a history of posting misinformation. The Gray Zone and Mint Press News Consortium, like they post information that doesn't have to be retracted because of misinformation. But yet Wikipedia and the mainstream media, they still target these outlets and call them controversial. But for what? Just because it goes against the mainstream narrative, not because of anything that's misleading or misinformation.
Because they're saying things that
It's
they
threatening
don't
to the
agree with. And
empire.
exactly, yeah. I mean, I think you put out a video about it. I think Convo Couch. I think multiple people have said about how Wikipedia, they often have people, because you can, anybody can edit a Wikipedia page, right? So they often have people that are able to just always be on those pages and make sure that nothing bad is being said about any prominent figure. Your friend Glory Jones, she edited that page of Near Tanya,
Yeah.
and then like not even like 5 minutes afterward, the page got re-edited. That's crazy.
Yeah. Their moderators work there full time. And then there's an article by the Gray Zone which talks about like who owns Wikipedia, who's on their payroll and what their agenda is. Like they have an interest in protecting the empire class.
Crazy times, man. Well, Franco, thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming on, man. Once again, guys, please subscribe. Go check out Franco's videos on Frank Analysis. Go check out some of the other people that we've referred to. Once again, Justin Jackson, he's entered the fold. He's joined political YouTube and trying to get the word out, trying to make people understand what's going on truly who our opposition is, who our enemies are. It's not just your neighbor who's racist. That is a problem, of course, but you got to watch out for the people that all they care about is making money, and all they care about is serving the corporation. That's your enemy. That's a predator.
Mhm.
So look out for that. Once again, subscribe to Frank Analysis, subscribe to HMO podcast, subscribe to the Hot Media, and we are out. Bang.
Thanks a lot, Brooks.
No problem, man. Thank you for coming on once again.
Yeah, no problem, man. All right, let me stop.